One other note I felt like I would want to cover. This is a perfect time to do it because it goes to the next token that I wanted to cover, and I'm not sure. I'll take part blame for one thing, and that is I've never disclosed my age, and there's a reason I don't do it. It's because it's none of your business. But I will tell you that I'm pretty darn old. There was a time that I watched Howdy Doody. I enjoyed it for the one time I did get to see it. We had TVs that were just big hulking boxes of wood. I'm talking real wood sitting on the floor, too heavy for even two people to lift. There was a time when all we did was play with board games where the computer would sit off in the corner halfway unused, and we didn't really care about it except to do papers for work. There was a time when we would, the scooters, right? We got these Razor and all this garbage scooters, and they got tiny wheels and it looked like crap. I remember the time when scooters had nice, huge, round, air-filled wheels. I'm talking big, round wheels, and and they really were fun to ride. They didn't react when you went over bumps and rocks and all this garbage. And we didn't do this newfangled electric scooter nonsense. None of that applied. And what we thought of as video games was a kind of, a cartridge, an Atari that you stuck in a thing, and it had no kind of good graphics on it, but it was the most fun experience you could think of. And, we actually played outside. These, I'm saying this because I'm trying to give you a sense of the fact I'm old. Okay. I'm old. And I've had people that I've hired. There are people that worked for me. And sometimes I've asked them about some of these things, and sometimes they don't even have an answer, which tells me it's not that I'm out of touch or any of this. It's just that people today, and I don't know where this came from, but they're just making up words now. We're literally making up words because people have not, again, and in this case, some of these are outside the United States, so I can't even really blame our education system this time. It seems like it's a social media phenom that there's just this desire to make up words. And certain of these groups, and I'm not going to call out specifics, but certain of these groups have made up words, or they've reappropriated words, or in some cases misappropriated words to try to make a point, and then they make themselves sound like an idiot in doing so. So I was doing a research on a token. It's on a pre-sale, allegedly, and it's on pink sale. And one thing I've said is anytime it's on pink sale, I'm going to automatically consider it risky. I need to quantify that, though. So here's the announcement for today's episode before I get into this token. I'm going to be building a matrix, and the matrix is going to be kind of a scorecard, and I'm going to break down all of the criteria that I cover, and then it's going to be part of the thumbnail so you can always follow along. This will hopefully help people that are not listening to the totality of my audio. And I'm going to put a score metric against each one of these so that hopefully it helps you realize why I gauge certain tokens certain ways. There are very specific things I look for, certain things I weigh higher than others. And I'm going to be working on that probably tomorrow-ish. I'm not sure. It depends on the happenings of this weekend. I'm going to work on that, finalize that, put a brand on it, and then make it available. In the future, there will be more tools that will be part of the subscription model that's coming soon. In the short term, I'm going to just make the scorecard available so you can follow along with my thought process. But when I was evaluating this token, and I'm going through, and it's kind of the dry run for my scorecard that I'm going to be doing, it occurred to me that I needed to unfortunately subject myself to the cesspool that is Telescam, because this token, to my detriment, is only in Telescam. They don't care about anything else. And so I go there just to understand the pre-sale, what's happening, what's going on. Immediately, I'm inundated with a bunch of messaging that says, now this pre-sale has wrapped up. It's already done. And they've locked the claiming. And this one allegedly is KYC'd and allegedly has an audit. Part of my scorecard is going to be going through the audit as well, because what occurred to me is that people don't understand that there are levels to audit, and the levels can affect risk, and you should understand the different kinds of audit and why some audits are crap and some audits are actually very good. Depends on the network too. So as I'm looking at this cacophony of noise of people who are now trying to claim their tokens and cannot, And I'm seeing a persistent response from the developers that basically says, just wait for an announcement, wait for an announcement, wait for an announcement. It's coming, wait for an announcement. We can't give a date. We're working with pre-sale, da, 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 da. And okay, so I respond and I'm basically saying, look, there's a lot of people asking for a date and a time. Is there a reason you can't give them messaging that tells them that when they can expect to be able to claim their tokens? Like, this is a core expectation. Could you imagine if you booked an online order from Best Buy right now? For those in countries where Best Buy is, it mostly deals with electronics, but it has a lot of other stores, a lot of other products. You book an online order for Best Buy and you say, I want to pick up that microwave. And they say, well, we'll tell you when you can pick it up. And then they never give you a date. You're just waiting. They took your money and they never give you a date. Or could you imagine if you went to, online and you booked an order for clothes, or maybe you ordered a car, right? You ordered something through an online conduit and they never give you a date. They just say, just wait. We'll tell you. Don't worry about it. Eventually, Amazon would have been shut out of business. They would have been sued out of business. But in the crypto bubble, it's tolerated that, it's okay not to have a date, because why not? And then what happens? A lot of these projects who come across that way, who are truly sketchy, rug pull the damn thing, and then people squawk because they got scammed. And then they scream for regulation, when the truth is, if you had just simply held them accountable for the crap they're doing, maybe you'd have been a little bit safer. But because you tolerated that garbage, you got cheated out of what you were supposed to get, because you allowed that. You allowed them to abuse you. So I didn't say all this. It's in my head when they're responding, saying, wait, just wait. Then as I'm asking questions about when are you going to give a date and a time, I start getting two responses. And they both are, I can tell their age because they're making up words. They're made up words. The words are not words. They have not been taught in any English class I can think of in the known world. Jeet. Now, here's the thing. I am old. I know what the word yeet implies. I think it's a stupid term, but I understand at least what yeet implies. Jeet has there's not even an attachment of it. For those that are outside of the United States, we have segments of our country, United States, right? We have what's called kind of the Midwest, and then we have kind of the South. We have the West and then the East. In the South, in parts of the South, I shouldn't say all, in parts of the South, jeet to us is the same as asking somebody if they ate. Did you eat, right? Jeet, right? That's all it really means. And so it doesn't make any sense when you come and you say, oh, he's just a jeet, or this is a jeet, or he's waiting to jeet. And in school, I make the assumption you're taught about context clues. Context clues are the way that you break out a sentence to try to interpret what the meaning of the sentence is and what they're trying to ask. If you say he is a jeet, and then somebody else says he's trying to jeet, these contexts don't make any sense. Because they don't make any sense, I know these I can tell they're dudes. They don't even know what they're saying. They're just making up words to try to sound cool with the cool kids. And they're just making up words and misappropriating what, like, it's almost like it goes back to my book of bad arguments, right? It's a totally different type of fallacy. We're defining a fallacy where there wasn't one before because the word didn't exist in that context. So then I go a little bit deeper. And it turns out that there were some contexts around Bollywood, but it was never to be used as a word. It was a movie, okay, but there was nothing to it. It doesn't mean anything. It didn't have any definition at all. Then in Hindi, I identified that, yes, it could theoretically refer to winning. Okay, so if I put context, he is a winner. Win? Well, yes, it's possible that I'm a winner, and that's why I'm asking these questions. And so I appreciate that, but I can tell by other words in what they're saying that they're meaning it in a denigrating fashion. This is why I say these young kids are just making up words, or they're misappropriating the words, and then they're not understanding. They sound like idiots when they say this crap, because from what I can tell, these two jokers didn't even know what the word meant that they were trying to use. So then I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe they're coming from East London, right? East London, there's a definition around this for what's another word for having sex? I'm trying to be PG here. Having sex, implying that you are having sex with somebody. Well, he just wants to jeet. Well, it didn't say who. It didn't say the person. It didn't say who I was trying to have sex with. And again, I can tell they're doing it in denigrating fashion, so I don't know what that's referring to. It didn't make any sense. Then I found a randomly generated definition. I don't even know where this came from. I don't know what country of origin, but it said essentially it's a guy who you can pull women. You're just top of the class. You're just the sexiest thing walking. So if I hear this first one saying he is a jeet, I disagree that I can get any woman because I've already tested the theory on quite a few of them that turn me down. So I know that's false, but again, you wouldn't do that in denigrating fashion. I found a definition out of India, the world's most loyal person, most trustworthy person. Okay, he just wants to jeet. Doesn't have anything to do with loyalty. I don't understand that either. Then I found one, and it said simp. Okay, you're a simp. Well, if I'm a simp and it says, okay, he is a jeet and I'm simp, what am I simping for when I'm saying give a date as to when you're going to do this thing? Like, do you see what I'm saying? That this word is being used in like 500 different ways and nobody has a singular definition. If I give you the word water, you know what it means. You get a visual in your head. Now, there could be distilled water. There could be purified water. There could be flavored water. There could be ocean water. There could be mountain water. But the point is, water is water. It has a definition, has one. So when I use it for you, it's easy for you to interpret what my meaning is. Either I want water, I see water, I need water, I provide water, etc., and so on. This and this response I was getting, this is number one of the 500 reasons I don't like Telescam. And now I understand better in some of these tokens that do push it and why it's part of my scorecard will be, why I'm not going to advocate those tokens, because it's clear to me that the demographic is so skewed in, and I can tell by the way they worded the sentences that these are not Native American speakers, Native English speakers. I can tell they're not in the United States, and I can tell they're young. And then they're just making up words. That's fine. But if your token admin, the person who's behind an investment product is speaking in terms like a child, would you invest stock that a child spun up? Maybe you would because you're a gambler. I'm not going to do that. So part of the reason I told this story, part of my criteria going forward in this scorecard I'm creating is going to include if I sense, and I'm pretty good at this, if I detect any sense of childishness, and when I say childishness, you can have somebody who is young, but brilliant, well-spoken, they're able to express themselves, they were taught the English language correctly, they know how to present a professional product. Boyan Slat, who's out there cleaning up oceans, he invented his deal when he was a teenager. He's a very presented one young man. That's what I want to see in charge of my projects, at least. If you are a gambler and you don't care, that's fine. And I will talk about this token, and you are free to jump in if you're a gambler and see if it makes sense for you. I'm saying as part of this introduction here, going forward, when my scorecard is released, it is going to include consideration around the communication. How are they communicating? And I'm not going to bias just because they have broken English. That's not the standard. The standard is if I ask you a straight up question, you better give me a straight up answer. If I say I'm looking for this information like a white paper, you better be able to tell me where it is. If you're using garbage terms that don't mean anything, I'm going to score you negatively, and it's going to weigh very heavily because you're not only are you getting triggered because you're so triggered that you're making up words, but you're misusing words that don't even mean anything. now that means that you have no credibility in my eyes because you're not able to communicate your project, and it should be treated as a professional project. Now, this particular token that triggered this, no pun intended, happens to call themselves Twitch for blockchain. I automatically think it's going to fail because I think it's too ambitious because we already saw a Sunflower game bring a blockchain to its knees. However, I will present the coverage of that token here after this in case you want to take a look at it for your portfolio, because I'm not telling you what to do. This episode here today is simply to tell you that the scorecard's coming, and I'm going to prioritize it because of this garbage that I just went through around Telescam, and a realization in me admitting to you that Telescam is even worse than I thought it was, because it's I would say saturated with these. I can't even describe them now, that they're all over the place where they're infecting it. And maybe that's the decline of cryptocurrency. Maybe that's the reason that none of these cryptos can survive anymore, because they're being infested with these kids who don't know how to use words correctly, who clearly weren't taught how to present a professional product, who are just throwing crap against the wall hoping it sticks. And then they're the ones most likely to scam you because they don't have any fundamentals, which is another of the criteria on the scorecard, is education and background and fundamentals. Because anybody can spin up a token. Anybody can create I could create a crypto right now. I theoretically, literally could create a crypto right now. I have the money on tap where I could spin the thing up, and I'm 99% sure I could get that market cap over $1 million very darn easy simply because of exposure. The reason I don't do it is because right now I don't want to put it out as I see all this issue like this Telescam garbage. And I can assure you, if I were to create a token, it's not going to be anywhere Telescam at all. So it's not the right time. If I were going to create one, I'm not going to do it. But the point is that anybody can. It's easy. And that increases the risk of scamming. And this kind of garbage increases the risk of scammers, because it's clear these guys, what's going to happen is this token, where the fluffy non-answers are going to come out, chances are it's going to rug pull. And then these same kids are going to be screaming that they got ripped off and all this garbage because they didn't listen when I'm trying to help them out to hold the token developer accountable to make sure that they are releasing specific dates and times. And they're too young to understand why that's a problem. And I'm hopeful that anybody listening to this show understands I am very by the book. I am not going to tolerate the childish garbage from anybody. I don't care who it is. When I say I want to smoke, I do, but you still got to come with it with respect. You cannot come at me incorrect. That rhymes. So the scorecard's coming. I'm working on it, and I'm prioritizing it now given this interaction. And I'm going to be covering this token here shortly so that if you are interested in taking a look at it, you are free to. I don't recommend it, but it might be a thing. It might be perfectly fine. I suspect, based on the responses of one of the devs who struck me as somewhere in the range of 18 to 24, that it's either going to be a scam after it launches, is my guess, or they're going to be in over their heads because they don't have the credentials for this and they don't have the balls for this. Keep an ear out and an eye out for that coverage that's coming here. Sometime after this release, I will be doing that. And then on the other side of this, many of these that I just did from yesterday and today will be on the main podcast. So if you're subscribed on the main podcast, one thing I'm working on, and many YouTube didn't hear this, but the podcast, I'm talking the main podcast, is going to be moving to a new host. It won't change anything as far as the coverage, but a lot of these changes I'm making in terms of brand and in terms of messaging and alignment are all to prepare for that move to the new host. So if you're not subscribed to the main podcast, you probably should be, because you're missing out on a lot of good coverage. If you are subscribed on the main podcast, I can assure you going forward, you're going to see more parity with the coverage that's on YouTube versus what's on the main show. Keep in mind, though, sometimes something happens like this Forever Financial Freedom garbage, and then literally the next day, things change. Now I have to do totally different coverage on the podcast because it's already changed before the next episode of the main podcast. That's where YouTube plays a better role, because YouTube is immediately searchable, and I can pretty quickly spin it up. It takes longer, but I can pretty quickly spin it up in response to what's happening right now. Anyway, keep on deck for this update I'm about to hear release with this nonsense. And listen, you know what I'll do? I'll open up the comments down below. If anybody can give, I'm serious. And I'm in Urban Dictionary, so I already know the game because I already know the answer is none. If anybody can give a defined, specific, unified definition of Jeet, not yeet, Jeet. I understand it's got tons of different definitions. What I want to understand is chances are these people that I'm seeing are from an Asian country. Chances are they're most likely, I'm going to gauge probably from an Asian country, likely an Indian, or I'd say probably China if I had to gauge it. So I want to understand from those, if that read is correct, it probably is based on the language barrier, where this Jeet comes into play. And then point me to where that definition is well known. And second, if you look at the token and you decide to go to Telescam because you're okay with Telescam, I challenge you to listen to the devs and tell me that they sound like they're any kind of credible. Even if you're a gambler, I want feedback as to the interactions. Talk to the devs. Let them answer any questions. And I want you to convince me that they convince you that they are actually, that they're in this and they know what the heck they're doing.